Markets decline after a brief breather. The Sensex drops around 500 points from the day's highs. IT stocks continue to drag the Nifty. Mark Mobius, positive on India, says it's still the best bet in an uncertain world. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das urges banks to innovate, offer new products and go out there to get deposits. Says concern is depositors are shifting away from banks' deposits to alternative investments. The RBI is worried about high food inflation and is keeping an eye on it, says Governor Shaktikanta Das. Real GDP growth is higher than estimates. Neeraj Chopra will bid for a second successive gold medal in the men's javelin throw at the Paris Olympics later this evening. Vinesh Phogat appeals in Court of Arbitration for Sport against disqualification from the Paris Olympics, asks for a joint silver with the losing finalist. Good evening and welcome. You're watching Profit 360 on NDTV Profit. And over the next half hour, we bring you all the action from the markets as well as other top news stories. Let's begin, however, with a look at how the markets have fared today. The Nifty and the Sensex ended lower with farmers as the top gainer. And Harsh Saita is joining in with a quick look at all the action that took place there.
Well, it's another day of weakness. We saw a couple of days of strength, but that's been given up, and we've given up 24,200. We're now very close to 24,100, at least at close today. We've closed at the day's low. There you go. That's the low point of the day, even though we were briefly in the green for a slight bit of time of the day, somewhere midway through the day. But outside of that, we've closed lower. So it's a weak market. Around 0.7% lower is where we've closed at. Let's pull up the heat map, see which stocks were most impacted. And there you go. Some life insurers showing some bit of respite. Tata Motors on the new launch of the Tata Motors Tata Curve has done fairly well after a couple of good positive brokerage notes. HDFC Bank was up 1%, which kind of held on to the market slide. But look at that sea of red. We saw at least 15 or 13 stocks slide over 2% in trade today. And we had IT, where there was some bit of pain. HCL Tech, LTI Mindtree, some bit of pain even in pharma. We saw hospitals and pharma, Divis, Apollo Hospitals, Power Grid, which was one of the big gainers yesterday, has now started 2.5% in trade today. Let's quickly pull up the sectors which were buzzing. And among sectoral indices, maybe the pharma was doing well, but IT, that's the bottom performer there. And we saw metals also slide around 1.7 odd percent. The Nifty Energy was down 1.6 as well. And outside of that, look at some of the gainers. The Nifty Pharma Index as well as the Nifty Bank just about closed flat. But the Nifty Pharma was up around 1/3% along with media. Let's quickly pull up the broader markets, the Nifty Mid Cap as well as the small cap indices. The Nifty Mid Cap closing nearly at the day's low, 1/3% down. The small cap too at the day's low, very close to that 1/3% down or thereabouts. So let's pull out the BSE 500 to cap this one off. And lots and lots of earnings reactions, from Lemon Tree to AstraZeneca to Balaji Amines, Kaplan Point, all of them impacted by numbers. RVNL2 poor set, 4.5% lower. Among the gainers, well, Symphony, BASF, second consecutive day where these two have been absolutely a buzz. Symphony for more than a couple of days now. And you'll see some good earnings reactions here. Suzlon continues its 5% higher journey, as has been the case since a while now. But broadly, we're seeing among at least the advanced decline was quite poor. In favor of the declines, it was a weak market.
All right, Harsh, thank you for that. Now, from markets to the central bank, the RBI left the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 9th consecutive time. Now, the central bank highlighted solid economic growth and the easing of inflation, Governor Shaktikanta Das said that the pace of inflation is uneven and slow. He added that there's still time until we align with the 4% target. Now, further, the governor displayed confidence in India's financial sector and said that it's capitalized and the balance sheets are unclogged. However, RBI governor has flagged concerns about banks' deposit growth and urged them to find innovative ways to attract consumers.
See, with regard to LCR, liquidity coverage, which the banks are expected to maintain, it's a draft which we have put out in the public domain. We will get inputs from all stakeholders, including the banks and other experts. Based on that, we will finalize our decision. We will take a decision. So far, it will not be correct to say that we have increased the liquidity requirements because it is still under discussion. We are waiting for the inputs which will come. Now, so far as deposit rates are concerned, it is for individual banks to decide on these matters which are entirely a part of their commercial decision making. Lending rates and deposit rates, as you know, are deregulated. It is for banks, and the situation will vary from bank to bank. So depending on the overall economic situation, financial conditions prevailing, depending on individual banks' own internal position with regard to how much deposit they have, what is the composition of their deposit, what is their loan growth, it is really for the banks to decide on the deposit rates, and the banks will have to take a call.
And the Managing Director of the State Bank of India, Ashwini Kumar Tiwari, has said that money will come back to banks if there is a market correction.
Just compare this situation to some years back when we had a similar situation. Markets were doing very, very well and deposit growth was lagging the loan growth for about 4-5 quarters. But ultimately it evened out as the markets corrected and as the banks also focused more on deposits like we are doing now. So this came back to the normal. So I guess this ultimately will happen.
Now, the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das has said that the central bank was keeping a close eye on food inflation as pressures from that end could cascade into higher prices and services as well.
Continuing food price shocks slowed the process of disinflation in Q1 2024-25. There is also considerable divergence between headline and core inflation. This has brought to the fore the issue of how much importance should the MPC give to food inflation. Food inflation pressures cannot be ignored. Further, public at large understands inflation more in terms of food inflation than the other components of headline inflation. Therefore, we cannot and should not become complacent merely because core inflation has fallen considerably. Second, and equally important, is the reality that high food inflation adversely affects household inflation expectations, which have a significant impact on future trajectory of inflation. The MPC may look through high food inflation if it is transitory, but in an environment of persisting high food inflation, as we are experiencing now, the MPC cannot afford to do so. It has to remain vigilant to prevent spillovers or second-round effects from persistent food inflation.
Now, the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das has said that the trend of banks and non-banking financial companies offering top-up loans on collateralized loans such as gold loans raise concerns. He warned that such practices might lead to loan funds being deployed in unproductive segments.
Banks and NBFCs have also been offering top-up loans on other collateralized loans like gold loans. It is noticed that the regulatory prescriptions relating to loan-to-value, that is LTV ratio, risk weights and monitoring of end use of funds are not being strictly adhered to by certain entities. I repeat, certain entities. Such practices may lead to loan funds being deployed in unproductive segments or for speculative purposes. Banks and NBFCs would therefore be well advised to review such practices and take necessary remedial action.
And the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das has announced a proposal on continuous check processing. Now, this new step will ensure that bank checks can be presented and cleared within a few hours. Currently, checks are cleared through the check truncation system, or the CTS, requiring 2 business days for clearing. The proposed continuous check processing will reduce settlement risk for both the participants and also enhance customer experience. Now, another proposal that was made during the Monetary Policy Committee meeting was on UPI delegation. As per the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das's speech, a secondary user can access a primary user's bank account for UPI payments. For example, minors can use their parents' bank accounts for making UPI payments, but this feature will only be available for savings account and not for credit account on UPI. Now, the move aims to increase the reach of UPI transactions across the country and especially in rural areas. Well, moving on to what's happening in the global markets, and it has been a turbulent week over there. Wall Street rose after a new labor market data boosted confidence in the US economy. The weekly jobless claim came in at 2,33,000, which is below the forecasted number of 2,40,000. This helped ease concerns over the labor market strength. S&P 500 rose and Nasdaq advanced nearly 1.2%, while the Dow gained over 0.5%. Meanwhile, European stocks were trading lower, struggling to maintain a positive momentum amid the global volatility. Now, despite global markets being gripped by volatility, Mark Mobius believes the US market is yet to reach bear territory. Listen in as he talks about global trends and how the Indian markets outperform the US amidst this volatility.
Well, the yen carry trade was sort of the trigger to have a correction in global markets, particularly the US market. But you must remember the background to this is that there's a great deal of uncertainty in the world, and particularly in the US, as a result of the upcoming election. As you know, the difference in policies between the Democratic and Republican candidates are quite wide. The differences are very wide. So that's one of the keys to uncertainty, because nobody knows how this will turn out at the end of the day, and it will have global implications. But in addition to that, there's the uncertainty about the war in Ukraine, the situation with China and Taiwan, and the situation in Israel and the Middle East. So you have all of these certain uncertainties piling up in the minds of people and investors around the world, and that creates volatility. So when you have a trigger like what you've seen in Japan with the yen carry trade, that carries over into the market generally. However, if you look at the correction in the US market, it is not that big. In other words, we're not into a big bear market at this stage of the game, at least. And if you look at India, India has performed better than the US market. And that says a lot about the incredible growth rate of India and the dynamic economy that India now has.
Now, 200 Hero electric dealers have been protesting outside the company's headquarters in Gurugram for the last 3 days. Tushar Deep Singh joins us with more on what's happening there. Hi, Tushar. Now, Tushar, take us through the reasons for this protest and any word coming in from the company yet.
200 dealers are literally camping outside the company's headquarters in Gurugram, seeking dues of up to rupees 500 crore that have not been paid for the last 2 years. Now, that's a very stark change from the fortunes of Hero Electric, which until 4 years ago was the market leader with about 36% market share. Now it's barely existing. The company's manufacturing plant has also been shut down. Now, all of this happened because the company was found guilty of an imports fraud under the FAME 2 subsidy scheme that was for electric vehicles in India. So, regarding this particular, the visuals that you're seeing right now of the dealers said that they met the management and they urged the management to give at least half or even a quarter of the dues that are pending. And the company said nothing doing. You can take any recourse that you want to take. We reached out to the company as well. They acknowledged that a protest is going on and that a statement in this respect will be issued shortly. again, so Hero Electric, quite a turn of fortunes. How the rest pans out, we'll let you know when the more updates come in.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, the Indian health tech firms are growing faster than their global peers, but the sector is facing some headwinds. And Maitri Seth is here to tell us more about it. Hi, Maitri. So, Maitri, what are the pain points and what's working really for the sector?
India's health tech sector has been attracting eyeballs from all over the globe. According to a recent report by Traxin, funding for Indian health tech companies has risen to $9.9 billion as of July 2024. Now, this funding is much higher than around $566 million funding given to US health tech companies and $130 million funding given to Singapore companies. But there is a catch here. Although there is a spike seen in telehealth and telemedicine services provided in urban areas, the rural areas still continue to struggle, which makes it difficult for healthcare companies to provide telehealth services to nearly 70% of the total population in India. Now, what healthcare professionals are saying is that there is a spike seen in online consultations, online medicine bookings, and other online healthcare services, but rural areas continue to suffer because of lack of literacy, awareness, and at the same time, poor drug quality. Now, why this poor drug quality? There is a lack of regulated pharmacies and lack of proper storage and transportation facilities in rural areas that makes it difficult to improve situation in this belt. However, healthcare professionals are positive about the growth in the health tech sector for rural areas in the longer term, as they believe that the government's thrust on improvement in infrastructure and technology will help the sector along with the advent of artificial intelligence.
All right, now IT companies in the engineering, research and development sector are likely to see a dip in growth. This after they witnessed a revenue decline in the first quarter results. We are joined by Haripriya to tell us more about this. Haripriya, what are the reasons for the expectations of a slowdown?
IT companies in the engineering, research and development sector, after a year of good growth, are likely to see a dip in growth momentum in fiscal year 24-25. 4 of the 7 ER&D companies recorded sequential revenue decline in first quarter. Companies such as Cyient and Tata Elxsi in their commentary even flagged issues and concerns. The sector's growth rate was at 15 to 20% last year, and now it is expected to decline to 8 to 10%. These companies are facing headwinds due to seasonality factors, client-specific issues, and effect of slowdown finally catching up. Some verticals like telecom, mobility and communications are seeing pressure with new product developments being stalled. This is making growth harder to come by. With more GCCs coming up and the larger peers also strengthening their ER&D capabilities, the competitive landscape is also getting tough for these companies. However, these challenges are expected to persist only in the short to medium term, and growth is likely to come back in the long term.
All right, for all of you fans of hockey, India has won the bronze medal in Olympics. We're just getting news that India has defeated Spain 2-1. So the 4th bronze medal coming in for India. Do remember that this is the hockey team that got a bronze during the last Olympics also. So pictures on your screen are of that fantastic performance by the Indian team, which has now won the bronze medal in the Paris Olympics. India has managed to defeat Spain 2-1. It now takes our tally to 4 bronze so far. Later in the day, of course, Neeraj Chopra will also be competing. So another medal hopeful there. All right, on that happy note, we slip into a very short break. On the other side, we'll be bringing you more news, so stay with us. When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Long Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Headlines you start your day with. What matters worldwide is now in the palm of your hands. Get ready to seize the day and maximize your financial potential. Stay ahead of the curve with all you need to know on NDTV Profit.
Listen to the voices of reason as they talk about corporate health and investing principles with me, Neeraj Shah, on my show, Talking Point.
Let's be real, guys. There are many financial experts out there. Which stocks to target? What's good for long term? When to buy? When to sell? How do you stay ahead of all the financial noise to achieve your dreams?
You can accomplish all your financial
Welcome back. Now, the Union Minister of Minority Affairs, Kiren Rijiju, introduced the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 in the Lok Sabha today. And the bill has been sent to the Joint Parliamentary Committee now. The bill, which includes over 40 amendments, proposes significant changes to the existing Waqf Act. Among these are provisions to enhance representation for Muslim women and non-Muslim in the Waqf bodies. The bill will also aim to streamline the registration of Waqfs through a central portal and database and establish a detailed process for recording Waqf properties in accordance with revenue laws, ensuring that due notice is given to all parties involved. Now, the government states that these amendments are intended to improve accountability and transparency in the functioning of the Waqf boards and to mandate the inclusion of women in these bodies. The Election Commission's delegation, led by the Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar, has now reached Jammu and Kashmir's Srinagar. The delegation is reviewing the Union Territory's preparedness ahead of the upcoming polls. Now, earlier, the Apex Court had issued directions to conduct elections in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly by the 30th of September 2024. The recognized parties' representatives met the EC in Srinagar at the SKICC and demanded that the Commission must restore democratic space in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, in light of the continuing political turmoil in Bangladesh, the interim Prime Minister Mohammad Yunus has promised to deliver a government which ensures safety to its citizens. Yunus has expressed gratitude to the youth who made the protest movement against Hasina successful. While speaking at a press conference after landing in Dhaka, he said that Bangladesh has got independence for the second time. The Nobel laureate has returned to the protest-torn country from Paris to take oath as the head of the interim government. And the situation is seeming to normalize now in Dhaka. Mohammad Ibrahim Mojid has sent a ground report from there. Let's take a look.
The Dhaka life has resumed almost back to normal. All the offices are open today. As the office time is, the work hours are over. We are seeing a traffic surge in key points of Dhaka. As the interim government will be sworn in on 8 p.m. today, Dr. Yunus said that it's good to be back home, and he mentioned that freedom has to reach every home. The students are controlling the traffic over the intersections of Dhaka. As of now, we are expecting that the law enforcement will join and resume the service regularly. On the other hand, several employees of several banks they have protested to protested against the employees who were politically employed, and that's the update for now.
Now, the Ministry of External Affairs has said that it is closely monitoring the situation of minorities in Bangladesh. The MEA asserted that it is the responsibility of the Bangladesh government to ensure the safety and security of its citizens.
We are also monitoring the situation, as you know, with regard to the status of minorities. There are also reports that various initiatives have been taken by groups and organizations to ensure the protection and well-being of the minorities. I would like to reiterate what External Affairs Minister had said in the Parliament. We welcome these steps, but will naturally remain deeply concerned till law and order is visibly restored. Having said that, we also want to make it clear that it is the responsibility of every government to ensure well-being of all its citizens. We hope for early restoration of law and order in Bangladesh. This is both in the interest of the country itself and for the region as a whole, or the larger region as a whole.
Now, Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, who flew with Boeing Starliner, may return by February 2025 if Starliner is still deemed unsafe. Now, the Starliner has faced glitches in its propulsion system following a series of helium leaks. Pallav Bagla of NDTV has more.
There have been a lot of concerns regarding when will Indian origin astronaut Sunita Williams return from space. Overnight, NASA gave an update that she may well stay at the International Space Station till February 2025. She is safe at the International Space Station, and there are in all 9 astronauts at the International Space Station. She went to the space station on the Boeing Starliner for a 10-day mission, but the Boeing Starliner had glitches and it has been stuck there. NASA says they have several backup options and they are working on all of them, and one of them could be to bring her back on the SpaceX Crew Dragon. Several tests have been done on the Boeing Starliner to make sure that it can return to Earth. As of now, NASA says no decision has been made as to what would be the way in which astronaut Sunita Williams could return back to Earth. But what is sure is that she is safe at the International Space Station and that she will return to Earth sooner than later. Astronaut Sunita Williams is a veteran of space flights. This is her 3rd flight to space, and she has spent a lot of long duration flights. NASA says she is helping the International Space Station in several ways.
And the American singer Taylor Swift's 3 shows in Vienna have been cancelled after a terror threat was confirmed. Swift was set to dedicate 3 nights of her Eras tour in Austria's capital. But after government officials confirmed the terror attack plot, event organizers confirmed the cancellation of the Vienna leg. As more details are coming up for the cancelled concert, one major detail is that the suspects were hired as security guards for the concert. Authorities have arrested 2 suspects who are said to be extremists, one of whom appeared to be planning an attack on the event in the same area as the concert was likely to take place, while a manhunt is on to find the third. Well, that's all we have time for right now. Thank you very much for joining us. When the whole day passes like a blur, the news just whizzes past, and you're trying to stay informed. It is our job to bring you news that truly matters. At Profit 360, we cut through the clutter, the Long Street deals, finance and policy news that could shape your tomorrow. The newsmakers, the trendsetters, and the innovators. In 30 minutes, we've got you covered. So stay ahead, stay informed, and stay profitable with Profit 360.
Welcome to NDTV Profit. The global markets and the Indian markets are witnessing sharp swings and volatility. This has been triggered by multiple events that have taken place in the last 2 to 3 weeks. To get a sense of what's happening in the global markets and how will it impact India, we are being joined by Mark Mobius, Chairman, Mobius Emerging Opportunities Fund. Mark, welcome to NDTV Profit.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so my first question is, what is your assessment of the current situation in the global markets, partly triggered by fears of US recession, partly triggered by the yen carry trade rewind, and to a limited extent geopolitical issues?
Well, the yen carry trade was sort of the trigger to have a correction in global markets, particularly the US market. But you must remember the background to this is that there's a great deal of uncertainty in the world, and particularly in the US, as a result of the upcoming election. As you know, the difference in policies between the Democratic and Republican candidates are quite wide. The differences are very wide. So that's one of the keys to uncertainty, because nobody knows how this will turn out at the end of the day, and it will have global implications. But in addition to that, there's the uncertainty about the war in Ukraine, the situation with China and Taiwan, and the situation in Israel and the Middle East. So you have all of these certain uncertainties piling up in the minds of people and investors around the world, and that creates volatility. So when you have a trigger like what you've seen in Japan with the yen carry trade, that carries over into the market generally. However, if you look at the correction in the US market, it is not that big. In other words, we're not into a big bear market at this stage of the game, at least. And if you look at India, India has performed better than the US market. And that says a lot about the incredible growth rate of India and the dynamic economy that India now has.
Right. So the impact on India is limited right now. But before we go back to India specifically, I would like to help our viewers understand what's happening globally, especially after the Bank of Japan said that they will stop hiking the rates. There was a rally in all the markets. Asian markets rallied, US markets rallied, Indian markets rallied. But today morning we wake up and we find that all the rally has fizzled out. So my question to you is, how long will this yen carry trade play out? Is it fully done, or will it keep coming back because of the interest rate differentials and the currency rate differentials between the two countries?
I think it's pretty much played out, simply because what we saw is leveraging into this trade. The leveraging is what causes the incredible volatility. Now, the leveraging is now being wound down. It's probably pretty much over by this stage. So you're not going to see the kind of volatility that we've seen in the first stages of this deleveraging. So going forward, I believe the markets will move in a sideways direction rather than a very volatile situation where you have 5-10% moves. This is not going to happen going forward, at least in the short term.
Okay, you still see 5 to 10% move in the short term. And so I have to now go back to the Indian markets. We just had the RBI governor talking about the global scenario and telling the country that, look, India is resilient and we have enough reserves to absorb shocks. What is your view on India being able to control and absorb the shocks that are triggered in the global markets or any part of the global market geography?
Well, I must say the RBI has done a very good job in regulating the money supply, regulating the exchange rate, and generally looking at the total economy in a very wise way. You must remember, one of the big problems in America is money supply, because during the COVID crisis, the Fed increased money supply by 20, 30, 40%, depending on which month you were talking about. And then they made a big decline in the money supply. And money supply is what really drives market, you must remember. Now, in the case of India, the RBI was not so extreme. During the COVID crisis, they did increase money supply, but not as much as in the US. And therefore, the downturn, the decrease in money supply was not as dramatic. So you have two situations, one very extreme in the US and one not so extreme in India. And that says a lot. And of course, if you look at the situation now, money supply growth in America is down to single digits. And a lot of the money that came in during COVID has been dried out. It's been used. That's
Right.
one of the reasons why the market is weak. That's not the case so much in India.
Right. Okay. So the other big global factor that is playing out or could play out maybe in the next 1 month or whenever the Fed cuts rate, assuming the Fed is going to cut rate from September to say till about January, how will money move after the Fed cuts rates by say 25, 50, 75 basis points over a period of 3 to 6 months? Will money move out of emerging markets? How will this play out, and how will you see money shifting to different assets apart from equities?
Well, a rate cut would naturally move money from fixed income into equities under normal circumstances. However, as I mentioned, in the US, money supply is not growing at a high rate. And therefore, there will not be a lot of money going into equities as a result of that. The equity market will do fine, but it will not be doing as well as it's been doing in the past. Now, here's where the political situation comes into play. If the Republicans come into power in America, they will cut taxes. This will have a big impact on the markets. There'll be a surge in investment. In addition, the Republicans will increase production of oil and gas, which will mean a reduction in the price of oil and a reduction in the inflation rate in America, which will be very positive with the economy. On the other hand, if the Democrats come in, it'll be the opposite. You'll have increases in taxes, and you'll have a much more a stronger government spending program, which will generally not be good for the economy. So these are two different situations. That's the reason why the market in America is so uncertain, because nobody knows how this will pan out.
So we were talking about you were talking about chemicals, and therefore pharma. How about FMCG companies? Consumption?
Of course, with the growing per capita incomes in India, consumption is going to increase, and people's willingness to spend more on consumer goods is going to increase. So the consumer goods area is going to be very good going forward.
Right. One last question. This is about how will you look at India in comparison to China? Do you still think that India is, seen as being overvalued, and it's shot up a lot? We have crossed the 25,000 mark on the Nifty. But when it comes to comparative valuation between China and India, would you still prefer India, or would you